Hi, I'd like to go over the strong interest inventory with you now. I'm hoping, of course, that you have your strong interest inventory results in front of you on your computer, or maybe you printed them out. Whatever is easiest, because I'm going to walk you through an example so you will know how to interpret your results. Of course, we can talk on the phone or in the fall back in the office or whatnot about these in more detail. But you are going to be using these for your presentation that is due at the last day of class. So I do encourage you to understand it as well as you can. So just let me know if I can help with that. But for this presentation, I'm just going to kind of talk you through it. As you can see on the slide, Dr. John Holland's name is mentioned. The strong interest inventory is based on his theory. He divided the world of work into 6 themes: realistic, investigative, artistic, social, enterprising, and conventional. So we're going to go over those and talk about a little bit about what they mean. The strong interest inventory is one of the best career assessments out there, and it is only used for career counseling. So we're also going to be going over the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator on Thursday. And we'll talk about that personality assessment, but this one is focused entirely toward careers. Also, you'll see the link to the career interest game if you want to check that out. That's a fun thing to go to, and it is linked on the Blackboard page. If you want to go to the web links, you will find that there, so you can learn more about it that way. This is going to be a quick slide, but I just wanted you to see the first page of the strong interest inventory, what it looks like, so that you'll know you have the right thing in front of you. It also has your name on it, and this is something you can hold on to. I really do encourage you to hold on to it because it is a good assessment of where you are in your interests at this point in your life, and I promise you, as you get older, you might want to pull that back and look at it when you're in your future career and everything. So keep it safe in a good file somewhere with your schoolwork or something you can have for personal use as well. On page 3 of your assessment, and we did skip on over to page 3, you can see the 6 themes that John Holland came up with for dividing the world of work into these themes. And you will notice in this example, she has like social as her first, then artistic, then enterprising, then conventional, then investigative, then realistic. Those are in order for her. If you look at the bottom, you will see that the range of how strong those interests truly were. Now, I don't want you to get concerned if yours are all in the middle or if they're low or high. What's important is that we're able to distinguish that there are some higher than others and some lower than others. I call it the stair step kind of thing, where you can see the social, artistic, and then enterprising. Those are her top 3 interest areas. And in John Holland's theory, he says if you can find a career that encompasses most of those top 3, then you found a good fit. So that's important to consider when you are looking at this. The last 3, they're lower for her, and you can see that. It's not that they aren't a part of any career interest of hers, but they're not nearly as strong. So we're going to focus on careers that fit into more the top 3, especially that social, because it's really strong. So look at yours and see how that stands out. Now up at the top, you get a definition of what they mean, what those different ones mean. So look at that carefully, read it. See if it makes sense for you. It probably will. This is a great assessment. So it is probably measuring up your interest in order. It is usually spot on. You are the main person to know about this, though, as yourself. So, of course, we can talk about that, or if you have a little disagreement with it, that's not a big deal. But I do encourage you to look at it, understand it, and you can go from there. On page 4, you will see a breakdown of what are called the basic interest scales. As you can see from the example, it is in order as the same as the previous page, with social coming first, and then as you go on down, they're in the same order. I want you to look at the breakdown. This is actually breaking down each category. So you can see social broken down into about 6 different categories, and the others as well. And what you'll probably see is you will see that your strongest area overall, like for example, hers is social, you will probably see those being ranging higher, and then the next area a little less, and then the next area a little less. But look at those individual breakdowns within each category and see what that means to you. I think that's really interesting to look at when you're thinking about your future career, when you're trying to get guidance and wondering what is standing out the most for you. That's what we're looking out on here. What stands out for you? And remember, we're looking at the top 3 categories most, and then on down. We're keeping them in order because that's the way you scored. And if you took it honestly, straightforward, didn't try to analyze it too much, that's really giving you a good idea of where your interests lie. And as we move on with the assessment, that'll be more useful for you. In that, those 5 that are listed in the basic interest scales that are the highest, that's interesting too, because those are of all of them on that page, those are your top 5. And see if that makes sense to you. It usually does. If not, again, let's talk about it. Don't let it bother you, but we can definitely talk about it and how it fits with your career plans or just the things you're thinking about. On page 6, we get into looking at the occupational scales. This is usually very interesting to go through. I'm sure you have some occupations in mind. Some of you may have really narrowed it down, and so you're looking for affirmation. Some of you are more likely to be looking at what is standing out the most for you. If you will take a look at our example, under social, do you see how high those ranges are for her? That makes sense. That's her highest interest level. But when you look and you break it down and you look at the different occupations listed there, it gives you a feel for what she is most similar with. The way they did this for the assessment is they asked a large number of people who are happy and successful in these career fields. And specifically, this is gender based, so women in this career field, they asked to take this assessment as well, and you can see how similar you assessed as to the way they took the assessment. If they're happy and successful doing that career, then you would be too. So that's the thought on it, is that as you are looking over the assessment, you can see the occupational scales and you can kind of see which ones stand out the most for you. Does it mean you're going to like all of those? Not necessarily, but it is likely that you will find some that are really strong, that are very similar. You have some strong similarities too. You will find that you probably do like some of those, and I encourage you to think about them. Maybe look up some information. If you go to the web links on the Blackboard page, you're going to see the Occupational Outlook Handbook and ONET. Those are resources you can do to research careers. You can use them to research these careers because you may not be very familiar with all of these. Who knows, you may learn about a new career opportunity that you're showing a strong similarity to that really appeals to you, that you've not thought of before. Keep your mind a little open. I encourage at this stage of your life or starting college. And then, just check it out. Hopefully, if you have something really strongly in mind, it's showing up on there, or something similar to it is showing up on there. But again, don't fret too much if it's not. I'll be glad to talk with you about that, and we'll kind of pick it apart individually and see why, maybe talk about some of that. But usually you will see. Now you see the second area, artistic, there are a lot there as well. So you can see why that one was coming in second. And then we're going to go on to third, fourth, fifth, and sixth on the next 2 slides to kind of look at too, but that's the way you look at it. And I'll talk a little bit more about the next slide to break it down a little bit more. On page 7, you get a continuation of the occupational scales. You'll notice that this is the 3rd and 4th category for her. But it's just getting, you'll notice the bars are getting a little less, though there are still some things, even in the 4th category. You see career that is really jumping out there, and that happens sometimes. So when you're looking at yours, there might even be in your 5th or 6th category something jumping out like that. So that's okay. It happens. It happens. And sometimes that's something interesting to think about. You can even find that there may be some things to learn about some areas you might decide to do on the side for fun. That can happen sometimes. So, you know, it's interesting, and just think about it that way and learn and see how it fits with your plans, and keep your mind open. There could be something different, unique that you haven't thought of before that may come out on these assessments. And on page 8, you will see your final 2 themes and the occupational scales related to them. As you can see from the example, not much coming through there as similarity, and that is probably what you will see on yours as well. Some of you may have taken the assessment and you may have answered a lot of likes because you like a lot of things, or some of you may have answered very few likes. In those cases, you're going to see lower scales. You won't see as many bars, high bars, on even some of the first themes for you. And don't think there's anything wrong with that. You've narrowed it down, basically. And so you're looking for the fewer things that do stand out. And that can be helpful, actually, because the process of choosing a career and major is actually to narrow it down. So there's nothing wrong with that. And that can definitely be useful. On page 9, you have the personal style scales. And we're going to really get into this type of thing more with the Myers-Briggs, but this is a way to kind of look at your personality and how it played out on the assessment. If you look at the work style, the different categories there, learning environment, team orientation at the bottom, all of those, if you look at all of them, how you're reading this is in the center, of course, on that scale, means that you really go both ways on that. You're kind of just in the middle, but sometimes, like in her example, she's very much on the side of a work style that you see it's leaning in one direction very strongly. So pay attention to that, and it probably is going to make sense. Again, this is not a personality assessment. It's an interest inventory for careers, but it does have this aspect of personal style that I find interesting. And so I usually go over this and I think about it and gain insights from that as well. But we will get more into this type of thing when you take and go over the Myers-Briggs type indicator. So, but I wanted to point this out to you as well. And last but not least is the overviews slide, and on page 10. And as you can see here, it gives you an overview of what's been on the assessment. I do want to point out at the bottom, that is really important because that is showing how you took the assessments. I always look at that to look and see, especially at the bottom, to see how your results weighed out, to make sure that everything was valid. So read through that and you'll be able to see the measures, and in most cases it's going to be valid. I'm looking over each of your assessments also, and so I will let any of you know if there wasn't something valid showing up, if maybe the test is skewed in some way, which is rare. This is where I look for that type of information. You can also see the way you answered the percentages of the way you answered the questions, which is interesting, way you ranked things. So this is where we get into how many likes, dislikes, so what are the percentages of your likes and dislikes. And like I said, if you had a lot of likes, then you're going to have a lot of high interest showing out on the assessment. If you had a lot of dislikes, just the opposite. Nothing wrong with that. We can use both of them. But you can also see your top 10 list of careers that you're similar to. That's interesting to look over. If something you love is not on there, it's just, again, it's food for thought, something to think about, why maybe, and we can talk about that. But this just gives you a rundown of the assessment. So this page is really important. The remainder remaining pages of the assessment are for you as a college student. So I want you to read those, review them, and think about how they impact you. They're helpful as well. I just chose not to go through them in detail on this PowerPoint. So I hope this has been helpful for you.